action. And countdown from 5, 4, 3, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Matthew Lloyd. Well, hello and welcome to the second episode of our paranormal show of the month. Is there anybody out there? So in last month's show we covered the paranormal investigation at Dead Woman's Ditch in Somerset and a lesson on ghosts and hauntings. In this show we'll cover a very interesting paranormal investigation we carried out at Glastonbury Tour in Somerset, as well as what happened to one of our team's volunteers when listening back to some electronic voice phenomenon, EVP. And this month's paranormal lesson will be on mediums, clairvoyants and psychics. For those of you who haven't seen any of our shows yet, where have you been? Only joking, but seriously, I write the scripts myself, but I do have severe memory problems, so I do use a teleprompter so I don't miss out anything important. The videos of our shows are available on our YouTube channel at Club Map Productions, or on our website along with scripts and any accompanying material, which is www.clubmapproductions.org. Well, let's get on with this month's show. And now for this month's parapsychology lesson of the show, mediums, clairvoyants and psychics. So, in parapsychology, mediums are individuals who claim to have the ability to communicate with spirits, entities or energies beyond the physical world. Mediumship is often categorised into two main types: mental mediumship, where communication occurs through thoughts, visions or auditory messages, and physical mediumship, which involves tangible phenomena like spirit voices, table movements or materialisations. Mediums have been studied in both spiritual and scientific contexts, with skeptics questioning their abilities while believers and researchers explore potential explanations. The field remains a topic of fascination, debate and ongoing investigation. In parapsychology, psychics are individuals who claim to possess extrasensory perception, otherwise known as ESP, or supernatural abilities that allow them to gain information beyond normal sensory channels. Psychic phenomena include clairvoyance, seeing distant or hidden events, telepathy, mind-to-mind communication, precognition, predicting future events, and psychokinesis, influencing objects with the mind. While some believe that psychics have a natural gift or heightened intuition, skeptics argue that their abilities can often be explained by psychology, coincidence, or deception. Despite controversy, psychics remain a key subject in paranormal research and popular culture. The word psychic is from the Greek word psycho, which translates as of the soul, mental. In parapsychology, clairvoyants are individuals who claim to have the ability to perceive information beyond the normal sensory experience, often referred to as clear seeing. Clairvoyance is typically divided into three main types: precognition, which is the ability to perceive or predict future events before they occur; retrocognition, the ability to see past events that could not be known through any other ordinary means; remote viewing, the ability to perceive distance or unseen locations, objects or events in real time. There are three main types of clairvoyance. Clairaudient refers to the ability to hear clearly directly from those who have died. Clairsentient refers to the ability to feel and sense. Clairvoyance is the ability to see people and events in the past, present and future of the person they are doing a reading for. Clairvoyants often report receiving visions, images or flashes of insight, which they interpret as messages. While some researchers explore potential explanations such as heightened intuition or subconscious processing, skeptics argue that clairvoyance lacks scientific validation. Nevertheless, it remains a key topic in paranormal studies and popular belief. Okay, in parapsychology, a channeler is an individual who claims to act as a conduit for messages from spiritual entities, higher consciousness, or non-physical beings. place in various forms, including conscious channeling, where the individual remains aware while relaying messages, and trance channeling, where they enter an altered state, allowing an external entity to communicate through them. Some channelers claim to receive wisdom, guidance, or predictions from spirit guides, ascended masters, or extraterrestrial beings. While many see channeling as a form of spiritual enlightenment, skeptics argue that it is influenced by psychological, cultural, or subconscious factors. In the early 1990s, a study was carried out to discover why it's predominantly women who tend to show mediumistic powers. The results found that the answer may well be in the brain, in a particular area known as the cerebellum, in Latin, little brain. The cerebellum is a brain structure located at the back of the skull, beneath the occipital lobes. It plays a crucial role in motor control, coordination, balance, and precision of movements. Although it does not initiate movement, the cerebellum fine-tunes motor activity by processing sensory input and ensuring smooth, accurate execution. It also contributes to motor learning, allowing the body to adapt to refined movements through practice. Additionally, research suggests that the cerebellum may play a role in cognitive functions like attention and language. Damage to the cerebellum can result in ataxia, characterized by impaired coordination, balance, and motor function. The cerebellum is the second largest part of the brain. Neural pathways link the cerebellum to the cerebellar motor cortex, which in turn sends signals to the muscles, which are then able to move. Tests discovered that this particular area is responsible for the dreams we have and cognitive behavior patterns, as well as our perception and processing of music and language. During tests with a selected group of mediums, it was discovered that this area was in full use when they were giving readings. Therefore, does this mean that they are so relaxed that they fall into a dreamlike state, which opens their minds and allows access to the spirit world? Who knows? Women normally have a larger cerebellum than men. There is a theory that mediums can only make contact with the spirit when an energy field is projected from the spirit to the receptor, in this case the medium, much in the same way the radio waves work. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about seances. What is a seance? In parapsychology, a seance is a gathering where participants attempt to communicate with spirits, often through a medium. Seances can involve various methods, including verbal messages from spirits, automatic writing, table tipping, or spirit board sessions, such as Ouija boards. Some seances feature physical manifestations like unexplained noises, movements, or apparitions. Traditionally conducted in dimly lit rooms with participants holding hands to form a connection, seances have been a popular practice in spiritualism and paranormal research. While believers see them as a gateway to the afterlife, skeptics argue that psychological factors, suggestion, or trickery often explain the phenomena. Seances are normally held in a room that has been darkened by drawing curtains or closing blinds, and only having lighting from one or two candles. Normally, a medium leads the proceedings as she has experience of communicating with those who have died and wish to come back and use the medium as a method of communication. Now, in parapsychology, Ouija boards are a tool used for spirit communication, believed by some to facilitate contact with supernatural entities. The board consists of letters, numbers, and simple words, with a planchette, which is a small movable pointer, that participants lightly touch. During a session known as a seance, users ask questions, and the planchette moves to spell out answers, which many attribute to spirits. Skeptics argue that the movement results from the ideomotor effect, where unconscious muscle movements create the illusion of external guidance. Despite scientific skepticism, Ouija boards remain popular in spiritualism and paranormal investigations, often sparking debates about their authenticity and potential risks. The Ouija board was developed in the 19th century and placed on the open market by Eli Bond and Charles Kennard. It was William Ford who had developed the board and who worked for Bond and Kennard. Ford's heirs still owned the copyright to the Ouija board up until it was sold to Parker Games in 1966. Ford had produced his own version of what was known as the talking board, and up until then it was normally homemade or crafted individually. The Fox sisters, Leah, Margaret, and Kate, were central figures in the rise of modern spiritualism in the mid-19th century. Their story began in 1848 in Hinesville, New York, when Margaret and Kate, the younger sisters, claimed to communicate with the spirit of a murdered peddler through mysterious rappings heard in their home. These supernatural occurrences quickly captured public attention, sparking a widespread belief in the possibility of communicating with the dead. As their fame grew, the sisters conducted seances in which they demonstrated their alleged abilities to summon spirits and answer questions through coded nods. The older sister, Leah, soon took on the role of manager, helping to bring their performances to larger audiences in cities like Rochester and New York. Their influence played a key role in the spread of spiritualism, a movement that flourished through the 19th century and beyond, attracting believers from all walks of life. However, their story took a dramatic turn in 1888 when Margaret publicly confessed that the spirit rappings had been a hoax, achieved by cracking their joints and using other tricks to create the illusion of communication with the dead. Despite this revelation, spiritualism remained popular, and the Fox sisters' legacy endured as a testament to the era's fascination with the supernatural and the human desire to connect with the unknown. Mediums and psychics have been known to work on many occasions with a variety of different law enforcement agencies throughout the world in a bid to help solve various types of crime. Currently, information provided by mediums and psychics is inadmissible in a court of law in most countries in the world. However, this does not stop law enforcement agencies from using such services from time to time. Ectoplasm, in the context of parapsychology of spiritualism, is a mysterious substance that is said to be excreted from the body of a medium during seances. This ethereal, gauzy material was believed to serve as conduit for spirits, allowing them to manifest physically or communicate with the living. Descriptions of ectoplasm vary, but it is often reported as a white, mist-like or cloth-like substance, emerging from the medium's nose, mouth, or other bodily orifices. Proponents to spiritualism consider ectoplasm evidence of genuine spirit interaction, while skeptics dismiss this as a fraudulent trick involving muslin, cheesecloth, or other concealed materials. One of the most well-known recorded examples of ectoplasm production occurred with the medium Eva Carew, also known as Martha Baroud, in the 20th century. Photographs taken by researchers such as Baron Albert von Schwedt-Lotzing documented ectoplasm formations appearing during their seances. However, close examination of these images and eyewitness accounts led many investigators to conclude that the ectoplasm was likely a hoax, with some reports suggesting it was made from paper cutouts or chewed fabric. Despite repeated debunking efforts, the concept of ectoplasm remains a lasting element of the paranormal lore and continues to intrigue those interested in supernatural phenomena. Did you know that in 1951, Winston Churchill replaced the Witchcraft Act of 1735 with the Fraudulent Mediums Act? In 2004, Darren Brown, a well-known illusionist, was given the opportunity to conduct a live seance on television, Channel 4. Darren stated that spiritualism is no more than trickery. Worse is that it offers people who have been bereaved the false comfort of thinking that they communicate with lost ones. Darren Brown, the British mentalist and illusionist, conducted a televised experiment titled Seance in 2004, in which he recreated the experience of a traditional spiritualist seance to demonstrate the psychological and suggestive techniques behind such events. His goal was to show how belief in the paranormal could be influenced by subconscious cues, group dynamics, and misdirection. In the experiment, Brown gathered a group of 12 volunteers in an alleged haunted location and led them through a seance. He used techniques such as idiomotor responses, where unconscious muscles movements create the illusion of supernatural activity, cold reading, and suggestion to convince participants that they were contacting spirits. The seance focused on a fabricated backstory about a girl named Jane, who supposedly died under tragic circumstances. Despite the fact that Jane was entirely fictional, participants reported experiencing eerie phenomenon, including movement to the table and a strong emotional connection to the supposed spirit. At the climax of the experiment, Brown revealed that the entire seance was an illusion, demonstrating how easily the human mind can be influenced to believe in paranormal occurrences. His experiment highlighted the power of psychological manipulation and the ways in which historical seances may have relied on similar methods to convince believers of spirit communication. Ofcom, the media regulator, defended Darren Brown by putting out a statement saying that Darren Brown had carried out a legitimate investigation. During the 1990s, in a remote location situated in Norfolk, a group of academics gathered together to investigate the possibility of seances being a way of communicating with the dead. An academic from Sheffield University reported it was pitch black, but after a while a dot of light began to move around the room. I grabbed it. It felt like a rough knitting needle. Then it vanished. From Spirit and Destiny magazine, page 18, November 2004. Notes from the session in Norfolk showed that reports appeared on the table, and within whatever room the seances were conducted. The reports included vintage coinage, the most interesting incident being a camera logs in a box with a loaded new film. The film was processed and was found to have photographs of a regiment of soldiers, St. Paul's Cathedral as it was seen during World War II, and the Cathedral of Notre Dame. Now, for those of you who don't know what a report is, it's transference of an item or article from an unknown source and unknown means. Most items frequently involved have been reported as being coins, keys, watches, and cards. It's frequently associated with poltergeist activity. Now, Doris May Fisher Stokes Nee Sutton was a British spiritualist, medium born in 1920, who became famous for her claims of communicating with the dead. She gained widespread recognition in the 1970s and 1980s through public demonstrations, television appearances, and best-selling books detailing her experiences with the spirit world. Early life and spiritual awakening. Born in London in 1920, Doris Stokes claimed to have the first experienced psychic abilities as a child. She said she was seeing his spirits from an early age, though she did not fully embrace her abilities until later in life. She trained as a psychiatric nurse, which gave her insight into human psychology, a factor that skeptics argue may have contributed to her ability to read people effectively. Rise to fame. By the 1970s, Stokes had become a well-known figure in spiritualist circles, holding seances and demonstrations in large theatres across the UK, Australia, and the United States. Her performances often involved delivering messages from deceased loved ones to audience members, which many attendees found deeply moving. Stokes wrote several popular books such as Voices in My Ear, 1980, where she described her experiences and beliefs about the afterlife. Controversy and skepticism. Despite her popularity, Stokes faced significant criticism from skeptics who accused her of using cold reading techniques, subtly gathering information from audience members and presenting it as spiritualist insight. Some investigators found inconsistencies in the messages, and skeptics like James Randi and journalists such as Paul Daniels suggested her performances were based more on suggestion and psychological manipulation than genuine spirit communication. Death and legacy. Doris Stokes passed away in 1987, but her legacy endures among believers in spiritualism. While skeptics maintain that her abilities were unproven, the impact on popularising mediumship remains significant. To this day, she is remembered as one of the most famous and controversial psychic mediums of the 20th century. Now, as part of my interest in research into parapsychology, I've attended several different spiritualist churches around the UK, mainly in the south, and as one-to-one meetings, either at booked appointments or holistic or spiritual fairs, I've met with many mediums and psychics. Some have been very accurate, even with some predictions happening many years later, whilst many, particularly those using a live audience, have been more general on their information and messages. Spirit photography is a phenomenon within parapsychology and spiritualism that involves capturing images believed to depict Spirits, ghosts, or supernatural entities. Emerging in the mid-19th century, spirit photography gained popularity as a photographic technology advanced, coinciding with the rise of spiritualist movement. Practitioners claimed that spirits could imprint their images onto photographic plates, often appearing as ghostly figures, misty forms, or translucent faces near the living subjects. One of the earliest and most famous spirit photographers was William H. Mumler, an American photographer in the 1860s who claimed to capture spirits in his portraits. His work attracted both believers and skeptics, with some suggesting that the images were achieved through double exposure or other photographic manipulations. Despite being exposed for fraud in some cases, spirit photography remained popular and was widely embraced by those grieving lost loved ones, particularly after the American Civil War and World War One. While modern investigations generally attribute spirit photographs to optical illusions, long exposures, photographic artifacts, or deliberate hoaxes, the fascination with such images persists. Contemporary paranormal investigators continue to analyse supposed spirit photographs, and the concept remains a staple of ghost hunting and paranormal folklore. The story of Tony O'Rahilly, the famous Wren Town Hall ghost photograph, is one of the most well-known cases in paranormal photography. The incident on November 19, 1995, when Town Hall in Shropshire, England was engulfed in flames. As firefighters battled the blaze, a local amateur photographer, Tony O'Rahilly, stood outside capturing images of the fire and the police cordon. Among his photographs, one stood out, an eerie image showing what appeared to be a young girl standing in the doorway, seemingly unaffected by the fire around her. The figure, with a pale face and old-fashioned clothing, was not seen by any witnesses in the scene, but appeared clearly in the developed photograph. The ghost of Jane Churn. Many suspected that the figure was the ghost of Jane Churn, a girl who reportedly died in a fire in Wren in 1677. According to local legend, Jane accidentally set fire to the town with a candle, and some believed her spirit lingered, haunting the area. The photograph was held as one of the most compelling pieces of paranormal evidence ever captured. Skepticism and debunking. For years, the image intrigued paranormal enthusiasts and ghost hunters. However, in 2010, researcher Brian Lear discovered a possible explanation. He found an old photograph from 1922, red postcard in a local newspaper archive, showing a girl with a striking resemblance to the figure in O'Rahilly's photo. This led many to suspect that the ghostly image was a hoax, likely a case of photographic manipulation or accidental double exposure. Excuse me. O'Rahilly's legacy. Tony O'Rahilly, who passed away in 2005, never admitted to tampering with the image. While many now believe the photograph was a clever hoax, some paranormal believers still argue that the image remains unexplained. Regardless of the truth, the Wren Town Hall ghost photograph continues to be one of the most famous and controversial spirit photographs in history. And finally, I'd like to cover electronic voice phenomena, also known as EVP. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP, in parapsychology, refers to unexplained sounds or voices captured on electronic recording devices, which some believe to be messages from spirits or other supernatural entities. EVP is often associated with ghost hunting and spiritualism, where researchers claim that spirits use electronic means to communicate with the living. How EVP is theorized in parapsychology. Spirit communication. Some parapsychologists suggest that spirits can manipulate electromagnetic frequencies or imprint their voices onto audio recordings, typically beyond the range of normal human hearing. Instrumental transcommunication, or ITC. EVP is sometimes considered a subset of ITC, a broader category that includes spirit communication through radios, televisions, and computers. Psychokinesis, PK. Influence. Another theory proposes that EVP recordings may result from subconscious psychokinetic influences of the investigator rather than external spirits. Residual energy theory. Some believers are certain that environments can retain emotional energy, or sound imprints, which then manifest as EVP under specific conditions. Common characteristics of EVP, typically found on recordings when no audible voice was heard at the time, often consist of short phrases, whispers, or distorted speech. May require audio enhancement or filtering to be perceived clearly. Sometimes appears as direct responses to questions, skeptical explanations, auditory pareidolia, the tendency of the human brain to find familiar patterns such as voices and random noises, radio interference, stray signals, CB transmissions, or electromagnetic interference can be unintentionally recorded. Audio artifacts, background noise, microphone sensitivity, or sound distortion can create misleading results. While EVP remains controversial, it continues to be a popular subject in paranormal research and media, with enthusiasts and skeptics debating its validity. In my personal experience, I've listened to hours of EVP over my time, and I've never heard anything that can be classified as a word, sentence, phrase, or any other vocal sound. So that brings us to the end of this month's parapsychology lesson of the show. And now to cover this month's paranormal investigation of the month. Okay, so for this show's paranormal investigation, we went to Glastonbury Tor in Somerset. We did the investigation overnight between 11 p.m. Wednesday the 5th till around 1:30 a.m. Thursday the 6th, and you'll find out later why we cut it short. So, let's first tell you a little bit about Glastonbury Tor, for those of you who don't know the place. Glastonbury Tor, a mysterious landmark. Glastonbury Tor is a striking hill in Somerset, England, topped by the ruins of St Michael's Tower. Rising 158 metres or 518 feet above the surrounding landscape, the Tor is an iconic part of British folklore and spiritual history. Its terraced slopes, which some believe to be ancient earthworks or remnants of a Neolithic labyrinth, add to its mystical aura. Parapsychology Glastonbury Tor. The Tor has long been associated with mystical, supernatural, and parapsychological phenomena. Some key aspects include the ley lines theory. Many believe that Glastonbury Tor sits at the intersection of powerful ley lines, which are energetic pathways that supposedly run across the Earth. The Michael Line, one of the most famous ley lines, is said to connect St Michael's Tower on the Tor with other ancient sites such as Avebury and St Michael's Mount. Some claim that standing at these points can result in heightened spiritual experiences or even paranormal encounters. The Isle of Avalon and the Arthurian connection. According to the legend, Glastonbury was once the Isle of Avalon, a mystical place associated with King Arthur. The belief that Arthur and Queen Guinevere were buried nearby has contributed to the idea that the Tor is a bridge between the material and spiritual worlds. In parapsychological circles, it is often viewed as a portal or a site of increased psychic activity. UFO sightings and time slips. There have been numerous reports of unusual lights and unidentified flying objects or UFOs around Glastonbury Tor. Some visitors claim to have experienced time slips, where they briefly find themselves in a different era, witnessing scenes from medieval or even prehistoric times. These phenomena suggest a possible alteration in space-time around the Tor. The Hollow Hill and the Fairy Connection. Another esoteric belief is that Glastonbury Tor is hollow and serves as an entrance to the realm of the fairy folk or other interdimensional beings. Legends tell of people vanishing or hearing unearthly music while walking on the Tor, experiences that align with traditional fairy lore. Some parapsychologists speculate that this could be linked to altered states of consciousness induced by the Tor's energy field. The Grail energy and spiritual awakening. The Tor is considered a site of immense spiritual energy, often associated with the Holy Grail. Some visitors report having profound spiritual awakenings or psychic visions after meditating on the hill. The idea is that the Tor acts as a focal point for higher consciousness, similar to other sacred sites around the world. Conclusion. Glastonbury Tor continues to be a place of mystery, drawing spiritual seekers, paranormal investigators and skeptics alike. Whether it is a natural energy vortex, a remnant of ancient civilizations, or simply a place of natural beauty and rich mythology, its association with parapsychology remains strong, fueling speculation and fascination to this day. Okay, so the investigation. Myself and the volunteer driver production team member, paranormal investigation team member Cherie, got to the top footpath for Glastonbury Tour and parked in the adjacent lay-by at about 10:25 p.m. The newest volunteer member of the paranormal investigation team, Sue, arrived at the bottom of the lane around 10:25 p.m. and texted me to say she was here. We met halfway down the lane, and as I walked her back up to the top footpath, I explained to her about health and safety of climbing up the tour, especially at night, and especially as she hadn't even been there before, even in daylight. We got to the car and did the introductions, got the equipment cases together, the rucksack with the flasks of coffee and the snacks, and around 10:40 p.m. began a slow ascent up the tour, stopping in to take the night views a few times on the way up. Once we reached the top, about 11 p.m, we went into the town and took a few moments to catch our breath, whilst I got out and set up the equipment, which was 2 K2 EMF meters, 1 EMF meter, 2 dictaphones for electronic voice phenomena, or EVP, 2 dowsing rods, and one of the battery packs to charge up my phone and the charges we'd need. I did a quick sweep of the area with one of the K2 EMF meters, but got no indications or readings. Then we decided who would use what. Sue volunteered to use a dowsing rod, Cherie used one of its K2 EMF meters, and I used a dictaphone and the other EMF meter. We did a slow walk round the tower, but got little results. Then we went round to the back of the tower, the opposite side to the gravel-type clearing, and started asking questions there. Initially, we got no response until Sue went to the far left corner of the outside of the tower, and the dowsing rods appeared to move and cross in response to questions of any presence of spirit. I then got out my video camera and night vision to film the movement of the rods, but Cherie nor myself had any response on the K2 EMF meters. The dowsing rods appeared to respond a few more times to questions before the wind started to pick up, and we had to abandon the rods, as you need to hold them gently to allow them to move, which also allows the wind to move them, so we couldn't be sure at that time then of any further responses being accurate. We carried out a few more investigations around the tower and over at the other side where the gravel-type clearing is. As I approached the circular concrete mount with a directional sign on it, my K2 EMF meter started to respond to questions, rising up from green to high ambers. I asked a few more questions and it appeared to give a few more responses. At first I thought it was connected to the concrete mount, but as I moved away, I still got the responses on the K2 EMF meter. At that time, Sue had the other K2 EMF meter, so I called her over to the concrete mount to check the area and see if she had any response on her meter. But she had no response on her meter at all. The responses on my meter, however, continued for a few more minutes before stopping. Then, quite an exciting thing happened. We went back into the tower and Sue went over to the far corner, which would be near where the dowsing rods appeared to respond on the outside of the tower. As she started to ask questions, suddenly her K2 EMF meter started flashing like crazy, going right up into the reds. Cherie had the other K2 EMF meter at this point, and she joined Sue in the corner, and her K2 EMF meter also started flashing like crazy, again going up into the reds. It was actually very impressive. At the same time, both women reported a type of atmosphere and a coldness they hadn't felt before. I didn't experience any of these things. I had a dictaphone and a night vision camera at the time, and filmed Sue continued to talk out, and for both the K2 EMF meters to respond by flashing like crazy and going into the reds. This continued for what seemed like ages until the responses on the two K2 EMF meter readings started to fade away and then nothing. At the same time, both women reported that the atmosphere had gone, and they both felt that we wouldn't get anything else. Then I decided to let Sue and Cherie try the Necrophonic app on my phone through the Bluetooth headphones. Unfortunately, despite getting it to work before, I just couldn't get the app to work, so we had to abandon that idea. By this stage, the wind was getting up even more and it was bitterly cold, so we agreed to call it an end to the investigation. That was about 1:30 a.m. I collected in and packed away all the equipment and we made our way back down the tour, carrying the equipment cases back to the cars. Equipment reports. Despite the night vision camera working perfectly prior to going on the paranormal investigation, the files from the video camera were corrupted when I came to view them. Therefore, sadly, there was nothing to report from this. With the 2 dictaphone recordings made, one prior to midnight Wednesday the 5th and the other after midnight Thursday the 6th, there was nothing to report. I listened back to both recordings carefully twice, and I could only hear our voices in the wind on the recordings. We didn't use the dual drone camera or the night vision head camera on this occasion. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of the relevance of electromagnetic fields, also known as EMF, I'll cover this with you briefly now. In parapsychology, electromagnetic field EMF readings are often used to detect or measure paranormal activity, particularly the presence of spirits or other supernatural entities. Many paranormal investigators believe that ghosts can manipulate or emit EMF, making it a key tool in ghost hunting. However, scientific skepticism remains regarding this claim. Relevance of EMF in parapsychology. Spirits as energy-based entities. Some paranormal theories suggest that spirits consist of or interact with electromagnetic energy. If true, fluctuations in EMF readings might indicate their presence. EMF spikes as paranormal indicators. Unexplained fluctuations in EMF levels, especially in areas without electrical sources, are often interpreted as evidence of supernatural activity. Paranormal investigators use EMF meters to detect such anomalies during ghost hunts. Environmental sensitivity theory. Some parapsychologists propose that changes in EMF levels can influence human perception, potentially causing hallucinations, feeling of being watched, or other phenomena mistaken for haunts. Excuse me. Instrumental transcommunication, otherwise known as ITC, connection. EMF variations are sometimes linked to the attempts by spirits to communicate through electronic devices, such as EVP recordings or anomalous radio signals. Skeptical explanations. Natural and man-made sources. Power lines, Wi-Fi routers, electrical wiring, and even solar activity can cause EMF fluctuations. Psychological effects of EMF exposure. Studies suggest that exposure to strong EMF fields can cause dizziness, paranoia, or a sense of presence, which could explain ghostly experiences. Paranormal investigation methods using EMF. Baseline recordings. Investigators first measure the normal EMF levels in a location. Anomalous readings. Unexpected spikes or drops are examined, particularly in areas without known electrical sources. Interactive communication. Some investigators ask spirits to manipulate EMF meters as a form of yes-no communication. While EMF meters are widely used in ghost hunting, their effectiveness as proof of paranormal activity remains unproven. After I got back home and gone through the footage and the audio recordings, I sent a copy of the 2 EVPs to the volunteer Sue, who came along with us. After she had listened to the EVPs, she sent me this email. Hi Matt, just an amusing story. I'm currently listening to Danny Robbins' Into the Uncanny book on Audible, although I haven't listened to it for a few nights. As I started to listen to the second EVP, Danny Robbins' voice suddenly cut in, and it appears that the EVP had been paused and the audiobook had started playing without me doing anything. I wondered what on earth was happening for a few seconds. Warm regards, Sue. Interesting? Maybe. Coincidence? Again, maybe. Who knows? And that's it for this month's paranormal investigation. Next month we hope to bring you an overnight investigation of the Old Inn in Bishop's Hall, Taunton in Somerset. So that brings us to the end of this month's show. If you've enjoyed it, please check out the trailer and episode 1, along with our other shows, on our YouTube channel at Club Map Productions, or on our website where you can also get the scripts and download them and other accompanying material, and that is www.clubmapproductions.org. Many thanks and bye for now. And cut.